I'm sorry I won't be able to ask your names. I'm curious, but I don't think it not be a easy thing now. So, yeah, I am not an engineer. I have a degree in engineering. That makes all the difference actually. So, actually 4th year I was expelled from college in engineering. So 3 years I drank, smoked, had fantastic time. Today when I look back, it was the worst thing one can do to oneself. But given the social situations, this is all what one can do, because there is no space for positive rebellion. There is only space for negative rebellion here. You know, I understood positive rebellion much later. You know, so I wasted my life. 4 years, and I was expelled, and that is when I really began to wonder about what is happening in colleges. I could not find one person truly interested in learning. Not one person. I hope you are all familiar with that. No? Nobody has commitment to learning. This is what education is doing. And yet we celebrate it. Yet we want to say that something can be done without fundamentally understanding what is learning. No? So 4th year I was, so that was the best time in my life, that when I was expelled, I had a time, 1 year, I spent time really wondering about what is happening. And it was a regional engineering college, not one person interested in learning. This is a tragic case, And everybody was getting 90% and all that, and their idea was to join IPS or IAS, doing engineering and then wanting to do that. No? So at that time itself I went to a school because I realized that the whole tragedy begins at childhood. We are being completely conditioned by schooling, by schools, that I needed to really spend time. So I went to a school and I spent a year there, and it was time for reflection actually, and looking at what are we doing, what are we teaching, what is happening and all that. No? So there I took 2 decisions. One is never to work 9 to 5, never to sell yourself, number 1. Second, never do anything that you don't like to do, because the tragedy of modernity is that it is compelling people to do what they don't like to do. I mean, right from childhood, this is what is happening. Schools, no children want to go, but you find a way and fool the child and make them go there. They are not interested in going there at all, because it is against the nature of life. The very schools exist is against the nature of life. That learning is what life is all about, and then we tell ourselves that no, you have to go and learn there. Some silly teacher will teach you something, and you acquire that, and you think you are educated. So this is the whole process that is happening. So luckily then I got into NID after, I finished my degree. I mean, I just took it, did a lot of copying and passed. Some amount of learning, but I found it easier to copy and pass, so let me did that. And so 2 years I didn't do anything. I went to NID, and at NID first time I found myself learning. First time I found that there can be something called a learning environment, different from a teaching environment. Teaching environment is where teaching is happening. You only encounter teachers teaching. Learning environment means everyone is learning. There is nothing called a teacher there. Everybody is interested in something or the other. So they are spending the time reading, thinking about it, and when you meet students, what we ask is that what are you exploring these days? This is precisely what students in NID ask each other. Understand? This is a very different thing from what one does in an engineering college. Hardly anybody is interested in asking what are you learning these days. It's the same thing only. I have to ask you whether you have mugged it up or not. That's all. There's no other. There's no. And another very, very important aspect of design and architecture is that it demands your creativity. No IITs, nobody, no IIMs, no one actually demands you to be creative. You need to mug up what somebody has written and get good marks, that's all. But first time At NID, one is encountering that there is someone inside, someone who can begin to do things, who can think on their own, you know. So, learning, that was a very, very interesting, space. 3 years I spent there. Now when I look back, it was like a womb, for my rebirth. Because it actually kind of addressed, all the damages that schooling does. The fundamental damages of school, well, I'll go into it later. Luckily at NID, this, of course, I designed my own thing. It is not that NID consciously did it. When I now look back, all the things I was doing basically was a response to the damage that schooling has done to me. How do you recover your senses? How do you begin to see? Various aspects like that. But in NID, the problem was that it was still based on Western sensibilities. That your senses get colonized. Whole education is nothing but colonization. There is nothing else that is happening. But now it has been so naturalized that people don't even know what is colonization. This is the tragedy now. At least in our times, we could at least say that colonization is happening. But today, youngsters doesn't even know what that means. Because the whole thing is nothing but colonization. You naturalized colonized people. So one doesn't even question your slavery anymore. So, NID also directed me to a place that nobody, usually when you go through education, nobody directs you, that is to the village. All educated, seems to be looking westward, America, then all that. That is that whole education is geared towards that. It is never geared towards understanding in it that your own culture. I'm not BJP, please don't misunderstand what I mean by culture. Culture has nothing to do with what BJP is talking about. So here I have written, an ingredient that makes cultures, rediscovering process. So to me, culture is nothing that what is being spoken about. So I started living in villages, and being a designer and having interest in craft, I began to engage with rural artisans. That is where I really found that that whole space challenged my notions about learning, teaching, creativity, all that. Because here I am encountering a people whom we call are illiterate and uneducated, but are constantly innovating, constantly learning. Whereas here, you are fooled to believe that you are educated and you are closed to learning. But that process has been completely damaged. So that is one very important thing that I found, that this difference of these two paradigm differences. And other thing that luckily happened to me was that I decided to stop reading. I stopped reading completely for a few years. And I found that my system rewired. It became natural. What I mean is that it began to see. Seeing is not a choice. But today, for educated, you don't see. This is the problem. Seeing is gone out. You may not think so, but that is what it is actually. Because educated are physically present, mentally absent, or the other way around. Am I right? This is the normal situation. You are never there. And then you have to go and meet Sadhguru and people like that and do meditation. Look at the tragedy. You actually were born meditating, born present, go through education, you become absent. Then you do meditation for coming back to presence. So that is the basic thing, and so that is from where I began to look at children. And because I stopped, you see, one of the biggest damage that schooling does to you is which is done subconsciously, you don't even know what is happening, that it makes you feel superior. It's a very simple thing. Am I right? You may not be even aware of it. The fact that you got educated in your subconscious, you're already one step higher, no? From an uneducated person, you become an educated person, no? So, and what it does to you is that it prevents you from learning. It prevents you from learning from people whom you think you are superior to. Simple. So, children are never an object of your learning. It is something that you have to teach, right? Then, of course, the non-literate people, they are for you to change, no? You know, to develop them, all that, you know, to make them literate, a whole lot of. So, the shock. Huh? Mild, yeah. So I'll go into the. I give you a brief introduction. Now I will, start with this, and then we will, So what I'm talking about is rediscovering process. Process means from teaching environment, I'm talking about to learning environments. A teaching environment is where you don't create knowledge. Somebody else's knowledge, either you mug up or you use reason and store it. That's all. A learning environment is where you create knowledge. By the way, we are born to create knowledge. We are not born to analyze somebody else's information. Don't you think so? As a biological system, we are authentic. That is the nature of life. It has to generate its own knowledge to survive. You can't live on somebody else's knowledge. This is an absurd idea, actually. But for hundreds of years, people have been bought into that idea that, of course, you can get educated by somebody else's knowledge, and you can read it and understand it. I recently came across Stephen Hawking's, statement. It's very interesting. He says that ignorance is not the enemy of knowledge. False knowledge is the enemy of knowledge. It's so interesting that you create an idea with your mind, and then you create a reality, and you think this is what it is. This is what is happening. And you'll gain by that some salary and all that, no? So we don't even want to look at it. So here, I just wanted to tell you about my, that journey from MACT to NID and things like that. And so this has been a, very, actually, listen, you don't have to look there. Can look at me. If there is some, longer thing, I can show that. No? It's better we see each other, and, you won't miss anything, actually. So this is just for my reference, and something I have also already talked about, So you see, I stopped reading. This is one most important thing that I feel that I have done. Secondly, because of that, I don't refer anybody's thoughts. Whatever I'm talking about is from experience of seeing, being with people, working with people. So my work with rural artisans was again a turning point, because that is where I realized that originality is possible. Now, I won't be able to show you all that. There is a site called kumbham.org where you can go and see this exploration that I have done. I have not done any kind of teaching there. Basically, I was also not doing any management tricks. I truly believe that they are capable. I'm not pretending that they are capable and making them do, not at all. I truly believe I am a colonized person, and it is they who should teach me and not me them. This is very clear. I am going to the village to rediscover my culture that has been, uprooted through my education. So it is very clear, the equation was very clear. The village people are there to teach me, to let me know what is life, how to live, all that. It is very important now to go back to this, because we know where we have reached with all our progress, how much distraction we are doing. So, in fact, what I call indigenous knowledge is wisdom knowledge. That knowledge is inherently life sustaining, whereas modern knowledge has nothing to do with sustenance of life. It is a destructive process. It keeps on destroying life. It keeps on, and it is continuously doing that all around. It is, and its very nature is to explore. Its very nature is hierarchical. So we have formed a foundation called Existential Knowledge Foundation, and whose purpose is to truly understand what is learning. Because today all the research that is happening is in reference to how to make schools better, how to teach children better, those kind of silly things, never to understand what is wrong with modern knowledge at all, that question never arisen actually. You see, in Sanskrit, Sanskriti and Vikriti are two terms. One talks about, distortion of cultures. Am I right? In English there is no other word. Of course, the culture word itself has been, converted into song and dance. No, what is the meaning of culture, song and dance? Cultural program. You see, there is nothing about culture. What is happening is nothing but engineering the mind. All schools in this country are teaching the same thing. Am I right? All architectural education. You look at any education, it is all the same thing. What is it? It's just creating clothes, but make you believe you are educated. That's all. So, this is a foundation that we have formed to establish fundamental research on, to really, to take forward this whole notion about what is learning, how do children learn, all that kind of thing. And naturally we are interested in childhood, motherhood, all that has been completely now, mistaken, which has been, I find it strange that, some years ago, mothers were told not to breastfeed children. They're supposed to be unscientific, you have to, that, no? 20, 30 years ago. Something must be wrong with human beings, no? To take such decisions. No? So this what is happening is that knowledge that is so inherent, implicit, inside you is being doubted. Pregnancy has become a disease. You have to go and see a doctor. No? So actually what I am trying to, impress upon you is there is a huge crisis that is happening. It is not nothing to do with schools. It is to do with knowledge itself. It is to do with how we create knowledge. It is to do with the alienation of modern man. So also this whatever I am talking about is not empty philosophizing. Very clear-cut ideas on what could be done. What could be done, how do we reimagine spaces, because I am always a doer. I never wasted time on just thinking, and I always did. It's only from doing that I have understood things. So there are proposals that are possible, provided you understand this what is happening. And of course there are long-term proposals and short-term proposals. Long-term is of course to eliminate schools throughout. No need of schools. Absolutely no need. No, you will understand it. This is no exaggeration. You will understand that this is the biggest conning that we have done to ourselves. The notion that we need schools. So now, since schools are there, what can you do? That is a short-term thing. Depending upon what is the child learning, what is the nature of learning. So given the constraints of modernity, modern spaces, how do we reimagine homes? How do we, so how do you, look after your children at home? How do you do that in schools? Extend the whole space. So that in truly understanding what is the need of a child, how does the child, learn and be? That's the main thing. So this is a very interesting kind of a thing that I felt few months ago. My wife is illiterate. she doesn't know her age. One day I found that it's actually a much better stage to be. You understand? Because they live in timelessness. See, I'm not joking about it. So the consciousness damage of measurement and quantification is so huge actually. The notion that we are poor comes from quantifying. Abundance is the quality of, see, in tradition people never counted things, counted chicks and what do you call that, goat and sheep and all. No, shepherds even now don't count. Do you understand? You get this? No? Because it's all sensed. This is what you do every day in the kitchen. Where do you measure? It is through sense, no? All the kitchen work is through sense. All the artisan work is through sense. Accurate measurements happen because of sense only. You understand? You train your body to do mathematics. Simple. Not the mind. Understand? So this damage is even deeper. As I see more and more, I find that this is a deep down damage of consciousness, that from a timeless being, how we have become so time bound and caught up with age and all that kind of thing that is happening. So what has happened is that what I say is that you can look at me, don't have to read. Literates learn the word and illiterates learn the world. That's the fundamental shift that we need to understand, that how we have become, what has happened to us because of that. How many knows cycling here in this group? Cycling, who taught you? Just one or two answers, it doesn't matter. Somebody, no?
Training wheels.
Eh?
Training wheels.
Swimming, somebody swimming, who taught? Who taught you? Coach. Okay. Chapati making, who taught how to make chapatis? Amma. Okay. So suppose I say like this, that cycling can only be taught by cycle, will you agree with me? Chapati making can only be taught by atta, will you agree with me? You get this? Because actually all learning is nothing but a direct engagement with what you engage with. Whatever qualities there is there in the water, that gives to you how to swim. That nobody else can teach you that. And you, depending upon the kind of water, isn't it? It's a one-to-one response of learning, changing, acquiring, transforming. This is what is happening. Understand? So the tragedy is that word has also done the same thing to you. This is what it is. Your engagement with words has transformed you without your knowledge. So what has happened is that learning as a natural, involuntary, choiceless process, learning has now become a voluntary and in language conscious process. That is why we assume that when I asked you who taught you, naturally somebody has to teach. No? This is our assumption, that language is important and there has to be a teacher. This is taken for granted as the paradigm of learning. No? So what happens is that the shift is that the physical body is no longer taking part in learning, in modern learning process. What is the color of sky? Can you quickly tell me? Fast answer. Okay. What is the color of leaf? Okay.
Yellow.
Okay. Acha, now can you for a few seconds close your eyes and imagine the earth? Earth. Okay, got it? Yeah? What size did you see? What size?
Very big.
How much?
Like I was just looking at the scale, like over and
You were a bad student then. Normally, either there are two usual answers. One is the globe that that is brought into your image. Other one is a picture. So either it is in a small 2D, 3D-dimensional globe, or it is the picture of Neil Armstrong's, that. This is what normally an educated person's response of imagining the Earth. Don't you think it's absurd? No? Other interesting thing about educated is that, have you gone to Delhi? Do you know where it is? Kanyakumari? Kanyakumari. See, the educated people, for them, traveling to Delhi means going up. Am I right? Going to Kanyakumari means going down. No? That's what is happening in the mind. So, what is happening through education is that you are rewiring your brain in a manner that is completely absurd. So, you create a reality around your notions and you believe in that, and you create a language also to suit that, going up north and down south, correct? Understand? So, you turn that your mental image also into language and establish that as a way of mind created reality. So, one very important thing that is happening is that in reference to children, I will tell you 2-3 things which are this notion of play, toy. These are the biggest myths of modern man. Children doesn't need toy at all. Absolutely no toy is required. In fact, I feel toy is more dangerous than schools. Yeah. Actually, we ran a school for 3 years in Pune. We called it Reimagining Schools. It was from 2011 to 2014. 3 years we really, so the whole thing was that for all of us to study what is a child. So, and what would the child learn on their own, So, we were questioning all the ground rules of, what is learning, how does the child learn, what is the structure and all that. And also my own experience of, observing how potter's child learns pottery and all that, it has been very clear to me that there is nothing called toy in their life, They are making things to understand life around, but with this experiment it became much clearer as to, I think now I have been able to decode the whole process. But what does it mean actually? When they do this, what does it mean, see, knowing that is not important. Allowing children is more important than you wanting to know whatever I am talking about. I am making that effort because it is very important to convey this to people that, because you need logic now, you need certain kind of convincing, to do. And these are quick responses. So, what children are actually doing is, so the whole play and toy are together, these are not separate, and actually play come from playfulness. Play is not an activity that now we have constructed as activity in the evening, so go and play, go and learn, So, we create, this is what I am talking about as mind constructed reality. You believe in it now, understand? Something that is not real, you have created reality and you are trapped in that now, you believe in it. So, this is what I am talking about, as you are not able to see what is happening, you understand, because you have created an unreal thing and now you are believing in that. This is the whole problem. And this only happened because, for me this happened only because I stopped reading completely, because I stopped reasoning. This is the most important thing that happened to me, and today the most celebrated activity that everybody promotes is reasoning. Am I right? Design thinking, now they are come with another tragedy now, design thinking, nothing but thinking only, there is no other, but everybody is caught on to that, MIT is giving, everybody is giving, so everybody is now happy with that new thing, design thinking. So, I would say that reasoning is the reason why you don't learn. You have no ability to learn because you have become a person with ability to reason all the time. By the way, do you know what is actually reason? What is the use of reason? Have you looked at that? Huh?
Explain to yourself a concept that you
Come on, But somebody else's concept, no? So what is interesting is that reasoning you can only do with what is known. Somebody has to give you something about which you can reason. So naturally, this can't deal with creativity. Creativity is that which, when you are encountering the unknown, that is when creativity emerges. Am I right? So the other one, number one, it takes that there has to be some information somebody has to give you on which you reason. Number one. Second, reasoning is that it's a feel good kind of a thing, that some doubt arises, you put a reason and put a full stop to that. It's actually a full stop tool. Reason, and then you make a reason and then allow it. Another more interesting thing that I found is that it is nothing but a storing tool. You understand? You see, for memory, you put everything inside together, no? You don't know. And with reason, what you do, you sort it out and store it. That's all what you are doing. Somebody's information, you want to store it well so you can recall well. This is all. This is all what you are doing. Yeah. I said, don't have too many questions. Let me just tell you this. No, because you see, this is the tragedy that education has done to you. You have not done any work, but you have so many questions. This is another interesting thing with reason. It creates an argumentative mind. That's all. Good for arguments. And you think you are very smart because you can argue. Hold questions, hold doubts, let it solve itself. But of course you can ask questions, no problem. But I just want to warn you this, So this very notion of toy is an absurd idea actually. I will go talk about that a little bit more. For example, when a child is sitting on a sofa, what the child does? Have you seen the child doing? Sitting on a sofa. Yeah, like this. It does this. Am I right? Everyone has seen it? Understand? Nah? So that particular activity, at that point, that's a playful exploration, and that sofa is the toy at that point. That's all. In fact, child doesn't have a notion of toy at all. Child even doesn't have a notion of play until you tell them this is play and this is learning. Till then, they don't differentiate this. So I am talking about this learning as forming because it's a two-way process. It's not a one-way process. Because all your life what you are doing is you are forming yourself. This is all what you are doing. Whatever you are doing is nothing but forming you. So when you engage with the word is forming you. Word gives you abilities to deal with the word. Understand? Huh? Actually, I find that the biggest damage of modern mind is the thing called understanding, ability to understand. Because through reasoning and keeping that in the realm of language, you short circuit comprehension. You read, you reason, and you tell yourself you have understood it. So understanding is happening within the realm of language. Understand? So this is again because you have been all the time in the realm of language. We are basically linguistic people now. We are in the realm of language all the time. So our cognition is from language because somebody has given you a book to read to understand things. You read, you understand, and then you think you have understood it. So everything is happening within the realm of language. So our responses are also within the realm of language. In modern this thing. So environmental crisis, poets will write poetry. They think their job is done. Artists will paint. Exactly what is to be done, that won't be there. There will be all drama around it. Planting trees, no, that is for the illiterates. So, the physicality of existence, to be in the world with your senses, with your body, this is what has been completely cut off. As a biological being, you are cut off. You are no longer of the earth, of nature. That is why we say nature is outside, no? Do you understand? Yes, of course. This is what we say. So, this is a complete alienation actually, that to say that nature is outside and you are, looking at that. So, this is a very interesting terminology that people use these days, out of the box thinking. There are lots of experts who will help you to get out of the box. Now, if you actually look at the terminologies that are used, by modernity, by that itself you will be able to understand what is wrong with it. You just take this, out of the box thinking. So, our assumption is that we are in the box. Our default state is in the box. Like our default state is to be fragmented, because now they are talking about it has to be holistic, you see. So, it is only a matter of spending a little time on just looking at the language that we use. We are able to decode what is wrong with us. We do not have to go anywhere else, just look at the language that we use. So, these two creates, learning the word and learning the world creates two kinds of cognitive systems. One is about reading, thinking, reasoning, mind all the time involved, so absent from the world. Other one is seeing, then of course the seeing will lead to a whole lot of other things, just an act of seeing is what makes you observe more, is what you make you patient, attention. You look at any quality that is required for a learner, that actually belongs to the paradigm of the world, that you observe, you engage, there is a response, So, what I am talking about is there are two kinds of cognitive systems, there are two kinds of paradigms of being, and the most important aspect is that human beings are, unlike what the West, promotes, human beings are the most helpless beings on the earth. They are not animals. They are far more, in the sense of course, human beings have a possibility, but we are also helpless. That helplessness, what that means is that whatever you engage with, you become that. This is the problem. You are formed by your engagement, both with what and how. These two dictate your formation. If you read, then you become a literate person, who doesn't has senses, who doesn't use any of that, the body based thing. And so you create a culture which is mind based. Naturally there will be problem of women will be excluded, children will be excluded, all that uses senses, innocence, all that will be excluded. So here only mind created people can exist. So the inclusion is based on whether you become a man. You can't retain your femininity in modern space. It's a myth. It's not possible. So this is what I talked about: reading, thinking, reasoning, agreeing, disagreeing, imagining, reflecting, all that basically in the realm of language. Whether you talk about imagination, everything is just within the realm of language. Other very interesting thing I wanted to, yesterday I told somebody was that this notion of dolls, suddenly stuck to me that, you see, children actually in the villages play, they would take anything and say, this is my child. But mind you, this is my child, this is not my girl. Do you understand this? It's a baby that the child always carry, not teenage Barbie dolls. They don't carry that. This is a new imposition, because you have not understood why children do this. Children are doing that because the first thing a child learns is to be a mother, is to take care. So, the first phase of the child, when the child is with the mother, all that is basically to do with nurturing. This is what all their games are to do with nurturing. You feed the child feeds you, am I right? Isn't it? Everything that you do to the child does back to you. It means that the child is learning you. This is what is happening. You become an authoritarian, she learns to be an authoritarian. Simple. You begin to instruct her, she learns to instruct. Simple. This is what is happening. It's a one-to-one. It's like a mirror thing. What you teach and what you intend to teach is not what they learn. Please understand this. When you teach, the child learns to teach. This is all. The other day I had this that image I won't be able to show you. In a friend's house, the child was actually keeping the book the other way around and reading. Understand? Because the parents also always do that only, na? So for the convenience of the child, you keep the book this way, hoping that that is what. So you are helping the child actually. So that is how this help backfires all the time, because that is not what is intended of life. Actually, life doesn't require help. Please understand this. It's an authentic, autonomous journey that is required. Everybody is capable. Only respect is what is required. Freedom and respect, care. This is all what is required. But somehow, we have been rewired to believe that help is what is, children need help. Oh, this music, how do I? Seek his blessing. You got that? So you see, this is the crux of learning. This is the best video I got. This is the crux of learning. Learning is nothing but looking for similarity, finding difference. This is all what the sense is doing all the time. Experiences are being understood in terms of similarity and differences. And of course, it's a deeper process. It's it's not it's not something that immediately you can appreciate and understand, because you have never gone into that field. But this is a crux of the matter. That you look at anything that you have organized. For example, first time when you ate mango, first time. Then after a few weeks you ate the second mango. Then there is a recall of taste. And then you say, these are similar yet different, because one is Alfonso and another one is something else. You understand? So it is actually the taste, the sense that is doing this organization. Doesn't matter whether you call manga or mango or anything, elephant you call it, doesn't matter. It can be anything actually. Language is just that, people don't understand this. It is the experience that is important. Understand? But today that experience is being denied. We are more worried about vitamin and all that, all that term, So the mind is eating today. The body is no longer eating food. It's the mind that is eating food. Understand? Senses have no role. In fact, the biggest tragedy I find in modern household is that you don't let the child eat on their own. You feed them all the time. You cheat the child to eat. You blackmail the child to eat. All kinds of tricks. And the complaint is that he is not eating. So the child's natural intelligence is also not allowed to function. Whether the child needs, I don't think any child would have even understood what is hunger. There is another very fundamental difference between the Western approach. I am talking about literate approach. West is a term that I have been using, it's a habit. It's actually the literate approach. Any literate people would bound to be that. Actually, West is a victim of literacy. From 1500, when the Gutenberg thing established, printing press, that is the time when slowly this whole Europe became textualized. It's called the alphabetization of the mind. Actually, there are some experiments I do in retreats, making people understand how they are trapped in alphabets, not in the real world. So the basic difference is that in the context of West, that the assumption is that it's a deficit response all the time, that something is not right, you have to repair it. That is the constant approach. You have to repair the child, you have to teach the child. You understand, no? That it's insufficient. There is something not right with the child. No? That is the paradigm. Whereas, from my understanding, it is about awakening the child. It is not about conditioning the child. This is the basic difference between awakening and conditioning. Awakening is what is inherent in the child is getting awakened. Conditioning is that something that are there for temporary reasons that become the default. Simple example is that children are quite contented all the time. They get angry, 2 minutes they are back to their normal. Am I right? So their inherent nature, their nature is to be happy, to be contented. So other one is only mechanical response. Sometimes they use it, they get angry to respond to a certain situation, immediately go back, become normal. This is the normal situation. But what is happening today is that every day they have to fight with the mother and father about the school or something or the other. So there is a constant fight that is happening in the child's life. So the default changes then. Then once in a while they become happy, all the time they are angry. Because every day they have to encounter, no, don't do this, no, or you have to do that kind of a situation. So the damage is actually complete. It's at a deep biological level, political level, cultural level, at all levels, psychological level, there is a total damage that happens with this modern education. So from a totally autonomous being, that the child becomes all the time dependent on the other. For everything that the child does, they need your approval all the time. They even ask you what to do now. That kind of a situation now. Actually, the child doesn't know. Childhood is a time when they do not know what is boredom. That's the real. That is the real their nature. But today that is reversed now. Very young children are complaining that they are bored. So this is reversed now. So this you can see there is an announcement that commercial break. There is an event on May 11, 12, where I am doing a 3-day program on to understand this bit deeply at Theosophical Society. And what we are doing is, on the first day we will look at deeply at damages of schooling, one day, and of course we will do a lot of experiential exploration as to, because this understanding cannot take place in language. It has to be understood physically, experiencing it. So the second day is on natural learning process, and the third day is on reimagination. What is that we can do together to deal with this? Because this has to be looked at from not just schools, the whole educational paradigm, whether it is higher education, all that needs to be relooked at to establish learning, not transferring somebody's knowledge. So the world itself is the content of the child's learning. That is the, the most important aspect of natural learning is that the world itself, what the child encounters is what the child learns. And there is a system, clear system made by nature for children, So, one shift is that playfulness is a quality, it's not an activity that we, we have assumed it to be. And toy is the material aspect of play, that and also body becomes toy sometimes, when they do this gadi, boo, so the body itself is, so it's actually, I would say what is happening is they are re-experiencing their experiences and they are remaking the world. This is what is happening. Whatever play that they do has a reference to their experience. Whatever things they make has to do with something that they have seen. So there is a clear correlation. So making is very important. It's not playing that is important. Making is important. I told you earlier that. So basically, it is in. Okay, I'll share some images with you on what I mean by the structure of children's play. Can you give me a book? Any note? Yeah. Form. Actually, in childhood, have you kept a book like this and said something about it? What is this? House, no? Yeah, normally it is house. House is what, children make this and say this is house. Am I right? You all must have done that. I have done it, no? Now, what that means is that this is a clear reference to the formal aspect. This is what I mean by form. What something looks like. That gets recreated, and this is creativity. They are using any material that they have to recreate what they are exploring. You understand? So he has seen he has seen me shooting. So immediately, 5 minutes later, he come back with that. Very simple. Just that PVC pipe is used, and his camera is ready. This is another very interesting thing. See, there are two types of play or two types of toys. One is in reference to an experience that I have already seen. Other one is an object invites you to do something. This is what, actually she has never seen a binocular. She is my daughter. I have an adopted child. So she had never seen a binocular. You know that, no? Pale? So when you cut it, it curls around and takes that shape. So what she did was that she kept it like that and started, because that particular thing invited her to do that. You understand? There is a technical term called affordances for this. Affordances. That what is it? What is the object inviting you to do? So this is what actually what she did. So one is that they remake the world. Like this was in the school. Immediately, children were making different types of mobile phones. Yeah. Okay. I find the best thing a book can do for children is this. Hardbound, they can play with it. So huge building, it's a high rise. So see the difference, no? We were actually using a book and making one house. Today it's a whole, 10-story building they are making, I think architecture is something that they should learn first, in case you want to redesign. I think I'm also feeling that we must look at it from a need of a biological being, entity. What does it actually wants to learn? First thing obviously is about nurture. Second thing should be about its food and its shelter. Probably that is the reason why this is what is being played by children. You know? I don't know, I'm just assuming that, because house is something that, you know, that they are experiencing all the time. You know? Bike. So from whatever they can put together, the bike is made. So in function, there, he's gone in. Yeah. All right. No. So here, see, the important thing is here that so the house is looked at in different ways. One is the form. What does it look like? So they play with that. Second is, what is the function of the house? So there they are only interested in the space. So they won't waste too much time on making the house. Just a bed sheet on top of a table is enough. So they are playing with that. So various aspects of their experience is being re-experienced. This is what they are doing, you know. So dynamic form is I'll come back to that. I have to show you another video of that. Not. So other thing is that structure. See, the first one, house, was just the form. So you don't make the house. The form is studied. How does it look like? You know. Second is function. What is the function of a house? Third is, how do you make a house? Then children actually spend time on collecting materials and actually making house from whatever material they get. It could be from hardboard. It could be from children use dupattas. Whatever is available there, they were making their house. Whatever material they get. Oh, even this is not. I'll repeat this video later. And the process. Then, of course, the quality. Quality is what I spoke about as the invisible aspect of things, like the sofa. You sit and do this, no? So that is not visible to the child. Visible, but they are able to feel it. So this feeling is done with many things. Like, for example, when they come to a space where it is very smooth, they will start sliding. Understand? So the space is used as per its possibilities. Oh, this is all video which I am not able to. Another really major area that I have explored is aesthetics. What is aesthetics? And how art is another mental construct of modern minds. Because see, today the tragedy is that when people want to rebel, they become artists. Am I right? And that is the biggest trap actually. So the modernity has kept a fantastic trap around you that even when you rebel, you belong to the same paradigm. You don't rebel at all actually. So by looking at children and rural tribal people, I have begun to explore what is actually the function of beauty in life. It is actually a biological need. It is not a intellectual need. A biological need for order and aptness. This is what beauty is all about. I'm sorry, none of this is actually working. Maybe I can, So this is what it is actually, So what I say is that human beings have become human knowings. We are preoccupied with knowledge, but in the meanwhile we have lost our beingness. We talk about things, but we don't know how to do it. So this is another area that we have studied, that what is drawing. So, this is one thing that in schools you can, because I do not think they will allow the children to play with whatever material, no. So, I find at least there is a possibility in drawing, you know, because drawing is the playing that children do on two-dimensional surface. The same rules apply when what experience, play, drawing. There is a you know, clear connection between all this, provided you allow them to do it. That is the basic you know, aspect of that. What is really important is autonomy. Do you allow the child to be on their own? Do you respect their beingness? You know, then they are, what they are doing is what they are bound to do biologically, that to understand the world. It is the three-dimensional world that is being understood, whatever they are encountering, and the method has been given by nature to them. You do not have to do anything about it. Allow it to happen. Simple. This is what it is. You know? So, drawing, some proof is that children draw human faces first, not the body. Of course, after their blabbering stage, you know, doodling and all that, no, that's, so you will see a correlation between how children speak, from blabbering to, you know, how slowly word form and then, you know, a sentence form and all that. Exactly the same kind of thing you can see in drawing, you can see in walking. All processes of biological nature, you will see this thing getting repeated, you know. So, this you know, the side of animals and birds and vehicles, that is a normal thing. There are of course exceptions, that this child actually feeds bands every day. Buffalo, yeah. So, naturally what she draws is you know, the front of the buffalo. She feeds her every day, you know. She is seeing her every day, morning, you know, feeding. And the other one, can you guess what this is? This one? Windshield, yeah. So, this is one child was very much interested in that. So, he used to always sit in the front and watch the, you know. So, he has been doing this, you know, thousands of drawings he has done just on wiper and, you know, car and all that. One 200-page book was full of just wipers and just the windshield, you know. Understand, huh? So, this has nothing to do with art, nothing to do with composition, nothing to do with self-expression. See, self-expression is a tragedy of modernity. Formation of self, ego, is a result of reading. Anyway, I can recommend one person, only one person that you could read, which is Ivan Illich. Ivan Illich is the most important person to understand how schooling and literacy has changed our system, you know. Illich talks about a very interesting thing, that even in the early 1600s, 1700s, people didn't know how to read inside the mind. To read means to read aloud. You understand? This, we could see it even in the villages some years ago, that reading is an activity of community. Somebody in the tea shop will read aloud and others will listen. So, reading was a community activity because we are biologically community, we are not individualistic. No living being is individualistic, please understand this. No living being. So, to read means to read aloud, means there are others around you. So, he says that once some Saint Augustine was living in a cell, you know, in his early old age, and he was not getting sleep in the night. So, he was in a dilemma whether to read or to sleep. He was not getting sleep. So, the candlelight was there, the book was open. So, he was looking at the people sleeping and looking at the book. It kept on happening for some time, and he found that he could read without, you know, reading aloud. So, the reading inside the mind was a new invention actually, something that accidentally people came to know, and then they shifted. So, the other became not required. So, the literacy also created another kind of break. From a community, it turned into individualistic people, you know. So, one friend, I have another friend who may not come here. We have a team actually this existential knowledge foundation, that person has been staying with tribal people for many years, Narendra, you know, and he talks about some very, very interesting things. For example, in villages, there is no idea of friendship. Friendship is a modern idea. You understand? Anything to do with individual and individual relation is a modern idea. Modernity is an invention. I remember when I was studying in Bhopal, you know, in this engineering college, you know, people from the same village would introduce the other person as bhai. Ye mera bhai hai. You understand? It is never referred as somebody belonging to someone else. So the notion is that the whole village people are their bhais. You understand? So the notion of friendship was absent. You know. So this has actually brought in, so many things we think we are taking for granted are very newly constructed. This is not, you know, this is not something that is happening everywhere. But if you are sensitive to this, you go to any village, you will be able to decode this. So this is another thing that from one line drawing into 3 dimension. So how that stage happens in the child, you know. So the house, the bus is one line drawing. I am not showing you so many things. This is, you know, hundreds of images are there just to give you a idea. Then the friend comes, but it is in same dimension, 2 dimension only. Slowly then that is converted into 3 dimension. So this is a stage by stage thing that happens actually. You know, 2 very important activities that I find today completely taken away from children is their need for repetitive action. They are repeatedly doing the same thing. That is why they ask you to tell the same story. Am I right? The same story. Don't change even a little bit. And even in their activity, they want to do this. You know, they want to repeat. But schools doesn't have a space like that. And also we think there is something wrong with that. Many parents have told me that. Why are they doing this? Yeah? But that is their nature. Understand? Huh? And another very important thing that I find again taken away from children is their need for guesswork. You know, they will come and ask you what is in my hand with no clue given to you. Am I right? And their way is to guess. That is their ability is to guess. That is why they are very good in that stone, paper, what that scissors. No? They are very good in that. They have no fear at all to, and have you at this age tried to play? First thing that happens was this fear. You know, fear of winning and losing. They don't have that at all actually. They are completely absent of, you know, winning and losing. They are playing, that's all. Understand, huh? So these are the basic damages that, you know, so we need to actually be very sensitive to this and understand that it is children have come to teach us, it is not for us to teach them, it is the reverse. And this is what I did when I got this child in my life, you know, I adopted a child. Actually, I didn't do any formal adoption, came to my life. I took 3 decisions. One is never say no to her. 2, because this is what villagers do. Villagers never say no to a child because it doesn't even occur to them. You see, one very important thing is that we have captured this word called freedom. Freedom is existential, you can only take it away. You can't give freedom. This is a wrong notion that Westerners have promoted. Freedom, which is not a human thing. It is an existential thing. It is a gift by life, that we have misused it. So children are born free. So in the village, nobody asks others permission. That, you know, or the mother is never worried about where, there's a trust, inherent trust in life. You know? So the 3 things I did was, 1, never say no to the child. 2nd, always follow her, never lead her. 3rd is never lie to her. 3 things. And I think rampantly these 3 things are done, no, by modern parents, these 3 things. So this is what is, this can only then allow you to see the child. Then the child will reveal its secrets. Otherwise, no, you are only learning what you want the child to do. No? Understand? If you really want to learn from the child, you have to hands off, stop dadagiri, learn from the child. So I feel, you know, that a collaborative effort is required to, if this is meaningful, then to take it forward, you know, because to me what is missing in the world today is the process, that process of learning, that everyone is involved in learning, not depending on an expert, understand, because you, to understand your child, you only have to be attentive to the child, simple, understand, sensitive observation, this is all what is required, that is missing. So we are always depending on, and also we are in a product mode, somebody will give you knowledge and you apply it. This knowledge application is the thing that is happening, you know. You see, the trick with the problem with method is that only the mind can learn method, understand. So the mind first learns the method, applies to the body, this is what is happening. That is why whether it is Krishnamurti schools or Steiner schools or Montessori schools, all are harmful for children. All kinds of schooling is harmful for children. I mean, you can make some money on that, that is a different matter. So those who are trapped in schools, every day when they go to a classroom, मन के अंदर ये पूछो, माफ़ी मांगो बच्चों से, मैं तनख्वाह के लिए काम कर रहा हूँ. And you know, it's interesting, I was at Teach for India yesterday, I call it Cheat for India. Teach for India. So I found that all of them, most of them are engineers. Most of them have worked for 10, 15 years in some lousy company, corporate sector, you know, felt completely meaningless. And now they have come back to teach children. I couldn't understand this contradiction. Now they will teach children to become like that again. A completely meaningless education, you know. So these are all selfish people actually. Selfishness in the sense that you feel very nice to be with children, but it's another matter that whether they feel nice about you. You see? Yeah. So I, 2-3 proposals is that there is a need for establishing a proper research in this country, because I hope you know that there is not one university in this country that is generating knowledge. You know that, na? This great Indian country, culture and all that nonsense we talk about, not one university creates knowledge. Not one school is a learning school. It is all a teaching school. So there is a need for reimagination. I hope you are all sad today. Feeling sad? I hope you are sad. That's my intention actually. To make you feel miserable. Yeah, no problem. Questions are welcome, answers are not welcome. Questions are no problem.
There was this one bit in the middle where you were talking about the bird and you said that the thinkers, something and that they exclude women and children. How does, I don't understand.
Actually, see, what happens in the modernity is that there is a fragmentation of the body and mind. Understand, na? Body and mind is fragmented. Our female male character, this is fragmented, because what is fragmented, what is absent is our senses, our, all that is absent in modernity. So there is only one kind of quality which people call it masculine. I don't know whether it is, you can give another name also, doesn't matter, but something that is predominantly of one side of the brain, You know, you could call it female or male, doesn't matter. So one side of gets omitted, no, from that whole process. That is what I meant actually.
Do you read at all these books?
I read to understand what wrong West is doing. Seriously, I am not exaggerating this. Please forgive me for this kind of statements. But because of 30 years of research on children, I understand where they are going wrong. You understand? They are doing all kinds of experiments, but again and again, the paradigm is very clear that children need to be taught. This is the first, So I wonder, and if you actually look at all the strange experiments they do with children, to understand whether they are, brainy or not. Now, you've seen that, no? One bottle they gave you, pour like this and pour like that, and then you're very good, that kind of thing, no? Do you understand? So you first of all, I find that everything is like a lab kind of situation. In order to understand life, you can't put it in a lab and understand it. You can't take it away from the context and then try to understand what, So my documentation is important because I have documented children on their own, on whatever they are doing. More than 4,000 or 5,000 videos I have on children. I used to have much more which got deleted because of all this computer changing and all that. But now I am trying to get more and more people to become observant of children, document it, because nobody else is doing this. So I feel that a collective effort should be done to observe children and without disturbing them document. So what I told my teachers is that learn to be absent in front of children. If you actually look at many of this thing that in the alternative education and all these things that you see photographs, you always see some adult in the center of activities. You look at any of the websites, you will find one adult in the center. I don't understand why this is so. Do you get this? So I tell that how do we become absent and let children be? So how do you document children without disturbing them? And if you disturb them, then don't document. The idea is not to document, but at least write down. No? See, simple things like this. How does a child develop language? A very authentic attempt is there for a child to articulate. Understand? No? Why can't we? How many are there 1-year-old children here? Anybody has? 1-year-old. So please do it, no? Please do it. Carefully observe how does the child develop language. How from a body gestures, like pointing to something to have that, how a first word comes and how is that word and that object is connected. When I talk about form, that resemblance you will find in the development of language of child. So one or two examples which a friend had sent me is that the first time the child saw, he had seen a billy and a kutta. Uske liye ba or kuch naam diya, they had given a name like that. So when the child saw a tiger, so the child added bada billy. Understand? So the formal resemblance is what they are looking at. So one day she first time saw sea, went to Andaman or somewhere, and she saw the child saw the sea, and the child started telling, she used to call pa for water, pani, it could be from pa for water. She started telling pabu. So the body is telling it's a huge water. So the body is also being language at that point for communication. And boo is the sound of the water. First time she is seeing a water making sound. You see? You understand? Na? So there is a clear context to their learning, clear construction of both language and the word. It is done together. Understand? See, the language is nothing but explanation of the world. So the world is primary than the language. Clear, no? And children connect this and learn about this. So they create language till you give them the language. Even that, if you look at in the village, there is no teaching at all. Like Bangalore slums, children speak 4 languages by the time they reach 4 or 5 years. Nobody is teaching there. So how does the child learn? The child is learning because the child is observing every word you say in a non-observant manner. Again, when I talk about observation, it is not observation. They are aware of everything that is happening. They are aware even when they are sleeping. Please understand this. things are going inside them even when they are sleeping. I think all of us, this is what is happening. So, for example, when somebody is telling keep that chair near the table, the child understood that something is called a table, something is called a chair. Understand? So, the word is given by the adult, meaning is given by the child. That is how they construct it. Whereas today what is happening is that we are telling everything to the child with the meaning. This is nose, this is this, this is that. So, the role of the child is absent now. Totally ready-made knowledge is being given to the child.
Just what you said, we are stopping that role of the child.
Yeah.
I know it is a good thing. Can you just explain that a little bit more? Because that seems important.
You see, this only happened to me after I stayed in the villages. I found that in village people, till now they are also getting damaged because of all kinds of things that we are being convincing them. They are illiterate, they are idiots and all that. No? Now they have also started believing this. They feel as if it's a sin to be illiterate. This is what is happening. Otherwise, in those years, some 10, 15, 20 years ago when I used to go there, one thing that I noted is an absolute trust in life. There is no tension, there is trust in life. So, children are never looked after. Children on their own grow. There is no parenting there. You understand? Huh? There is a basic shift that has taken place. So, there in those situations, the child is awakening to what its possibilities are. You understand? So, here because we are constantly creating constraints of various nature, it is not able to awaken. So, for example, when I decided never to say no to the child, I carefully designed my room. I carefully took away things that had a potential of telling no, like camera or whatever. No, so I would keep it away before the time the child comes to the house. She used to, in somebody else's house, she will come in the morning. That is how initially she was with me. So, yeah. Pardon? What? What? You see, the thing is that when we are looking at it from a narrow paradigm of modernity, you will get trapped in all these kind of things. What I am telling is that the whole Vedic system of knowledge is a result of this kind of knowledge. When I am talking about, see, for example, language, grammar, for example. Grammar. Grammar is actually, it was the worst subject when I was studying. I used to hate grammar. But today I regret it because I think grammar could be fantastic, almost everything actually. It is only because we have not understood what is the process by which we go deeper and deeper into understanding things. So I feel that now my understanding of children has come from a very different kind of approach altogether. What I find happening to me is a certain kind of refinement in my seeing. The more I have theories in my head, the less I am able to see the child. It's a very simple thing. So you start removing your theories, start cleaning your eyes, don't have romantic notions about things, observe. That's slowly, so it's actually an act of transformation of oneself. All act is that only, all learning is that only. So these two are totally two different paradigms. There's no point in trying to say what the West is doing and all that. I don't understand that now. But I think just after all we have reached this point where we have destroyed everything. I don't know what is good about it. I talk about two terminologies. One, that there is no word called Vikriti in English. There has to be Vikriti. Vikriti means distortion, cultural distortion. There is no word for that. And another word that I am talking about is, there is only one word called creativity, for anything you do. I would say modern terminology we should use destructivity. Anything that is not for life are destructive. Anything that is created for selfish individualistic reasons are destructive. Life has never created anything for that matter in that sense. It is to sustain life that knowledge is required, and creativity is only a tool for that. It is not for earning some money. And another big trap that we are in is the word called sustainability. It's just a myth. And sustainability for us is all individual sustainability. My company is sustainable, that you become sustainable. No, sustainability is existential. If everything is sustainable, you are sustainable. It's simple. There's no other shortcut to all this. So I think we should get away from these narrow these things and begin a new journey altogether. Yeah.
I understand that I am a victim of modern education, but imagine that I'm not known about listen to you, nor have I worked with children. But isn't the word a medium or a tool of self? Or I don't know how to use self also, but isn't the word or the book?
No. What I'm telling is that there is a role for word. It is your servant. Today what is happening is that you are their servant. You are the servant of the word, because you are seeing the world as per the word. This is the problem. So understand what is its purpose and keep it there. That's the whole problem of.
What do you think we read or learn or go to school in? What is the reason we do that?
Today,
Yes.
to make more servants, to work for software engineer and all that. Now nobody else is doing anything other than meaningful life. Nobody leads a meaningful life after education. Meaninglessness. You spend 8-10 years doing what you don't like to do, mug up things that you don't like to do, and then rot. That's all what you do.
So we do all this to survive in this society, right? For living.
I don't know for living. This is all
Okay, for
we,
living, whatever you say. Living. So when we take this out, how do we live? How do we live? How do we buy things in there?
go and farm. No, why don't you farm? Why do you want to buy? Go farm.
Okay. So then we have to go back to the village.
I don't know why do you want to use the word go back? Go forward to village.
Okay, go forward.
Simple.
So
Yeah.
I absolutely accept this.
Yeah.
When we do this, whatever we are talking now
Yeah.
is going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
We go away from school, we live with the nature, we do not constrain ourselves, we live a happy life. But when we are in this city or whatever, we happen to do all this
Yeah.
for living. I can't really see how we can go forward to that position still here, or we should not be here, go forward to that villages or whatever our hometown. What do you suggest? Because I don't
Actually, see this existential knowledge foundation. People ask me the time frame. I tell them 1,000 years. And I used to say 500 years. Now I extend it to 1,000. Now it may get more, because the more and more we are, damaging ourselves. So what I am talking about is not from tomorrow, not from today. At least understand that we are not some great guys. We are damaged. We are clones. We are fakes. We are only servants. There can be more meaningful life, more near to nature. All that is possible, no? So at least your grandchild should be able to do that, no? Or their grandchildren. So imagine a world one day, maybe it's not possible. Or if you're happy with this poisonous water that you're drinking every day, poisonous food that you're drinking, this is fantastic. Now you can get even chemical food. That is what the new food is going to be, chemically produced food. That's also good. So choice. You can choose between that, whether you want, is that, how do you want to see the, future? Not just our future, future of life,
And let's say we are like this now. Back in olden ages, 1,000, 2,000 years back, your interesting ideas do you think might be in place on how they live?
I don't know 1,000 years, but 20 years ago, when I lived in villages, I have seen much better life there. You know, people who are more contented, happy. You know, people who are, you know, less greedy. No? So you don't have to go 1,000 years. Step out, go to any village, you might find even now today people who are kinder than the people who have been educated out of their kindness. Kindness is our nature, by the way. So we are educated out of it. We are made selfish out of it. Competition, for example, an absolutely wrong idea. You know, but Darwin got it wrong completely. It is not survival of the fittest. That is cannot be. Life cannot survive with that kind of violence. It's surviving because it is all about cooperation. So you see, I am actually, from where this is coming from is not by looking at what is possible, what is possibility of a child. You know, see, I have some interesting videos of children being brought up by dogs, by hen, by monkeys. What has happened to them is that they have become like dog. This child who has been brought up in the you know with dog was not able to walk at all. She was using all the force, and she was licking water. You understand? Because her growing up was with the dog. Other one was with hen. The child was in a chicken coop. बोलते हैं ना? Yeah. हाँ. So this child, what happened is that it's you know, this lips has become like beak, and the hand has become like punk. It's like this. It was in somewhere in Malaysia or Indonesia, some place like that. You understand, na? So even physically, in order to walk, we have to be drawn out to that possibility. It's a possibility only. If I don't see, if you don't see as a child anybody walking around, you will crawl only. So human being is actually a huge possibility. Oh, and you have the other extent. It can be like, I remember interesting video I saw of a person called Kotiraju in Karnataka. You know, young age he has been with monkeys, of course with home also. He could climb anything like this. He would just come and climb. You understand? Huh? So what I feel is that today our understanding is so limited about knowledge, about life, about all this, you know. From a very narrow perspective of selfishness, about competition and all that. And I think there is another possibility which is actually real, which you can actually, if you see children doing, you will understand this. You know, like the school when I ran, you know, for 3 years, there was hardly any fight between children. So the notion that they will fight the moment they are left alone, you know, this is all our modern minds make up. And you also teach them like that, you know, like when you buy something to a child, you say, this is yours. That is more important than that you playing with that object. So we construct selfishness in the child right from the beginning. This is mine, and the child feels very happy. That's, you know, you are actually carefully constructing selfishness. This is what is happening.
So, what is your opinion on knowledge that has been passed on for traditions only? Like, for instance, if you look at
No, forget about that. I understood what you are talking about. It is only meaningful to people who are in process. Otherwise, see, what you have today, knowledge is nothing but superstition. You have only changed your gods. From Rama, Krishna, you have made Newton and Einstein your new gods, that's all. Because whatever you know today are nothing but belief. If you don't believe, they will not give you mark. That's the only reason why you are believing it. You have made no attempt to understand it from a process point of view. You have not rediscovered knowledge. So what I am talking about is even that knowledge is only accessible to people who are in process. Not a product mind doesn't have any access to that great knowledge. That great knowledge is accessible there, but it can only be received by people who have that capacity to receive it. This is the problem. So there are people reading Gita and reading all kinds of spiritual books. It is pointless. This great knowledge, but useless for reading people. Because what you do, I used to do. I used to, in those days, I used to read Osho for some time. Then I become Osho for a few days. Then the book is gone. Within 3 days, I'm back to my normal. Then I change the book. I read Sufi for some time. I become a Sufi. So it's like taking ganja. Chad jata hai aur niche aata hai. So one day I realized, you have to stop reading. Then only you have to begin to do to discover knowledge. So any knowledge is, accessible, provided you are a process person. Otherwise, you misinterpret everything because you are anyway creating from your mind. Tell me, would you have looked at toy in any other manner till I talked about? No, na. So what is the point in having great knowledge about toys or play, anything for that matter? Unless you become authentic learner, there is no way you can access the old knowledge. So first point is, are you authentic? Are you a learner? Are you in process? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For me, until one of the things that hit me hard in your entire talk was, I am someone who has been extremely dependent on structures for learning. For me, if my Hindustani teacher closes her class, it's like the world comes to an end because I don't know where to learn that from. And these techniques of music she has given me. So when right now I am at a point where my interest is in a certain grammar of learning, then my mind still is unable to grasp how I can do that without that. Do you have anything to say to that?
No, I remember I've seen a very small video of, every time I forget his name, this person from Karnataka, classical musician. No. Before that, no, after Balgandhar, sorry. No. From at the Belgaum side, Mallikarjun, yes. So Mallikarjun, there is a very interesting story about Mallikarjun. He has a friend in Bombay, and so he used to go to his house, and one day nobody was there. So he went inside the house and sat there, and as he sat, he heard the water dripping, kept on dripping, and then he began a music just responding to that. I've heard this even earlier. I used to live with Baul people in Bengal. I think you should meet Bauls, then you will know how to break all structures. Bauls are the best musicians I have come across, with no structure of learning and no training of any nature, but fantastic, spontaneous. So one day I was sitting with a Baul, 2-3 people. It was rainy season, and so the mandak, the frog, started croaking, croak, and then he suddenly took out his, it's called dumki, something. No, not Iktara. There's other one with they do this. So immediately he began to respond to that spontaneously and mid-air, And the thing with Bauls is that they spontaneously make poetry. It is not they also sing poetry that they have learned, but in the context they begin to create, very alert to situations, and I'm just telling you, pointing out something, Yeah.
I cannot accept, or I can't see for myself that when you say this education has damaged me, I'm just blind to that. Now you said human beings, the mind is basically full of possibilities. If it is true, why have I not discovered this for myself? Or like you said, if I am process oriented, I am already in the process of being damaged. So why have I not seen it for myself?
No, see, we are brought up right from childhood. We are brought up in a certain paradigm, no? You begin to believe that you have to go to education, teachers will teach you, Understand, no? This is how you are brought up. Am I right? You agree with this? There is knowledge outside which is given to you. There is an expert who will teach you. All right? So it is never that you can access knowledge. That is not the way from childhood you have been brought up. So, all this while the training has been happening. So, you are in one paradigm which has celebrated this education, understand, and
Where has the shift happened? Where has the shift happened?
let me, can you ask me once again, what do you want to know?
No, if you are speaking about paradigm,
Yeah,
which is the damage.
yeah,
Now, we were like say for example, we were something else and we become this.
yeah,
This shift.
yeah.
Now, one of my questions is where or when did this happen? And number two, is it possible for us to get back to that?
See, the shift has happened with the education. Education is what has been rewiring the brain. See, one thing is that this, there are recent studies in Finland about how literacy wires your brain. Understand? You go into education, reading, and the more you read, your brain gets rewired in a manner that can understand language. So, the whole system gets established in relation with language, reading, imagination, reflection, all that, you understand, na? So, the brain is transformed into thing that can deal with language. It stops functioning in the realm of senses. Physiological functioning of the senses die out. Your eye behavior changes. Basically, the way children look, absorb, is what I call as non-attentive observation. When they just go around and, like for example, when you lose your key, you ask your child, they will come and pick it up and give it to you, na? Do you think the child has actually taken care to observe where the key has been kept? No. You understand? So, the ability of observation, so the whole system has been damaged, of memory, of observation, you understand? Memory is a completely different thing. Memory is visual, experiential. This is what, and a recording is happening all the time. You understand? I'll give you one example. I was traveling with a driver, illiterate person in Bhopal. So, as we were traveling, I was asking him about the two lakes. In Bhopal, there are two lakes, So, he immediately told me that, do you remember 2 kilometers before we just crossed, there was a lady who was brooming, and she had lit fire to the dry leaves. You understand the situation? That we have already crossed 2 kilometers, and he is recalling something that happened just on that day, just few minutes ago, that he has seen. He is not referring to something that is there permanently. He is referring to something that happened at that point. So, after 2 kilometers, he recalled that he saw a lady brooming near the lake. So, all that information for no reason has been kept in his head. He, of course, he was not sure he had idea that I am going to ask him this question, na? So, the way we take in information is not a choice at all. Now we have damaged it, so we don't have it today, because we have constantly changed the way the eye functions. I have had this with many more other non-literate people, how they immediately recall something that happened, somewhere, and say, because it is all relational, it is all experiential, it is all related with seeing. It is not related with language and thinking. So, our memory system has become pure, our whole system has become language oriented. So, seeing to hota nahi hai, we look but we think. You take people to botanical garden, they will read all the names and come back, they will not have seen any tree. Correct, no? So, this is the literates. You see? Because see, reading is not even a choice. Any billboard it goes in, you have no choice. But real objects needs presence. To see, in order to see, you need to be present. So, it requires effort, it is not easy. This is the problem. So, don't worry much now. We are not thinking you are damaged. Go ahead, one day when you feel, work on it.
Why I am interested in this question?
Yes.
J. Krishnamurti talks about observing also. So in that context, I am trying to understand don't even know whether I'm observing what he's talking.
Yeah. Actually, there is a very interesting Zen koan, Zen saying. If you meet Buddha on the way, kill him. Forget Krishnamurti. That's the only way. Stop reading, stop. You see, what you're not trying to do is to become a Krishnamurti like seeing. Forget him. He has taught great things. Forget him. You can only meet him when you also acquire the quality of Krishnamurti. Otherwise, it's pointless reading him. Understand? Now, you've read enough, no? Stop reading. Observation cannot happen, and don't worry about whether you're right or wrong. Just, observation of things also you can start now. See, I did a very interesting work with children in the village. We called it sensing nature, knowing nature. It was in 2003-4, like that. I was working with children, and it was all about observing nature. And 2 months, so I was also in the village, and I found that it really rooted me in seeing. So you have to make an effort to actually begin to observe things consciously, because that is gone in us. So maybe create some kind of thing, whether that you're again observing, seeing.
And one more aspect of what you're saying about is, as I'm going to lead my life from this point onwards, it will be mostly centered around money and security. And as a judgment, in a judgmental tone, whatever you are saying, I'm judging that as valueless. Are you getting my point? So that gap is there. I'm just stating it. If you have anything to talk about, then you can add something to my understanding.
I'm tired now. I don't know what to answer. So. No, nowhere. We actually we ran that school only for 3 years. Then we were thrown out of the school. The trustees threw us out, and we had to stop it. But what is interesting is that I think the best experiments happening around the world. One of the best is called Anji Play in China, and that actually runs very similar to what we are doing in the school. Just letting children play. Anji Play, ANJIPLAY in China. It's a whole district that is practicing, it actually means true play, allowing children to play. But as usual, Americans have taken over. I don't know what they will make of it now. They will create a whole lot of story around it, and the subtlety to understand these things doesn't exist, You understand? It needs certain kind of subtlety to understand these things. Somehow it is missing in that cultures, It has to be gross, explained. There's no sensing way of knowing anything, And the second one is this phenomena schools in Finland called phenomena schools. I would say that what my work is very equal to all that, because, and I think even better, that I have not constructed any theory. I have observed children deeply. I have documented them for years. And I am only telling this is what children are all about, that's all. Understand? So I am not propagating this thing. So whatever I have done is to understand children fundamentally, so that people will begin to respect them and begin to leave them alone. Simple. So even when you want to reimagine schools, then what principles should be kept in mind to have a place for children to be together. I wouldn't even call it school to learn. I would call it a place for children to be together. Simple. Because learning is like telling. Otherwise, we could say, breathing, for example. You can't have a place for breathing. Similarly, you can't have a place for learning, because learning is the very nature. So adults have to re-understand many of these things. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Actually, there are many things to be re-understood. One, important thing is about storytelling. This is now caught up actually storytelling, and I am afraid of that. I think there is something not right about that whole thing, storytelling, because it has not been studied properly. What is the storytelling that we have invented? Because traditionally, stories were very different. So again, what is interesting is that the stories that are being told in all four communities are very similar. So there is much more deeper basis for these stories. It's not some story. So I think somebody has to actually invest time on understanding the mechanics of that. What is the story? How does it actually form the child? So I think the whole aspect of children need to be revisited and really looked at. Didn't I tell you theories now? Did I tell you theory? What is theory? What I saw, I explained. Isn't that? You understand? So the problem is that, see, don't bring in modernity, please. I don't think we should discuss on this. Let me just leave it here.